What's going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, and joining me is Jordan Ellis. Jordan, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. This past weekend, we had UFC Fight Night, Overeem versus Volkov. An important matchup in the heavyweight division, especially for the longevity of a veteran like Alistair Overeem's career. Before we get into the matchup itself, what did you think of the card overall and how it played out?
It weren't the greatest card, you got to say. It, I think a lot of decisions, a lot of stuff like that, but the main two fights they delivered. I think the fights that everyone was showing up for, delivered. Besides that, below that, there weren't a lot to talk about. I think Beneil, Dariush, and Diego Ferreira getting fight of the night kind of tells you everything you need to know. It weren't a fight of the year contender by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll get into them. There was some good fights, some good highlight performances, but it was the co-main event and the main event that really stood out for me.
Yeah, like I was thinking is most of the fights had good moments. A lot of them did, but there was no real fight other than I'd say that Ferreira Dariush was the best one on there. Obviously, he won the fight of the night. But outside of that fight, there was no other real fights on there that you were riding home about. Even that one wasn't that great. But anyway, we'll jump straight into the main event, which, like I said, Alistair Overeem against Alexandre Volkov. A fight that really needed to happen because both guys were stuck where they are in the division. They needed to get a win before they could get higher opponents, and they weren't going to give them lower ranked opponents. And so the matchmaking was great here. But I thought Overeem just looked a bit out of his depth when he actually got in there, and his shelling up defense didn't seem to work as well as it has in the past in this one.
Yeah, I kind of seen this coming. I expected Volkov to deal with him really, really easily, and I was surprised when we did our staff picks that the majority of people were going for Overeem in this one because he might have won his last two fights, but he looked unconvincing against lesser opponents. I'd say in Walt Harris and Augusto Sakai. Both of them guys really had the moments against Overeem, and I just think Volkov's a couple of level above them, and he would easily deal with both of them. I think we've seen him easily deal with Walt Harris. I think he'd do the same to Sakai, and I just thought he'd do the same to Overeem, and that's what he did. He was just too long, too accurate, and Overeem couldn't get away from the shots. And as he gets older, you see that he visibly doesn't like getting hit as much. He doesn't like getting hit. He kind of ducks and dives and runs and gets out the way, whatever he can do, and it's worked. But it just didn't in this fight. He got the beat. He got absolutely beat up, and then he fell to the ground. He probably could have fought on, but it was just a good stoppage because it was a total mismatch really in the end. And I was just kind of surprised that he didn't leave the gloves in the octagon. He didn't call it a day because he's been talking about this last UFC title run for a while. It's all we've heard of, and it seems like he's going to keep going. I don't know what's next for him. Volkov's straight into mix now. Overeem, he's probably just going to have to finish out his contract, make some money. That's all I can see for him.
Well, the thing is, I think Overeem can still beat a lot of the guys in that division, and even some of the guys ahead of him, because I think skill-wise and technique-wise, he is miles above most of the heavyweight division, especially Volkov as well. This is the one thing about this matchup. Both guys are technically sound. They're not both guys that go out there and throw big hammers and get a finish, which, like, you look at the Jairzinho Rozenstruik fight with Overeem. Overeem dominated him for, like, the whole fight. There was until the last 10 seconds. Whereas someone like Volkov had the same experience with Derek Lewis, yet Derek Lewis and Rozenstruik are both rated above these guys because of their finishing power and their ability to climb the rankings. You just need that one big shot. But technically, I think Overeem can still be a top contender. This is the end of his title run. Let's both agree on that. This is the end of his title run. Even if he got the victory here, it was going to be a long road to that title given the logjam at the top of the division. And so for Volkov, I think this is a bit of like a, yes, he's passed this test and he's in the top echelon of the division, but he's got to wait for everything to play out. It's not going to be a quick run to the title for him. I feel like if Ngannou can get the jump on Stipe, maybe they throw Volkov a Stipe fight or something. Who knows? They could give him a big, like, number 1 or 2 contender fight, but he just lost to Curtis Blades. You're not going to give him a title shot next, so it's not going to be a quick one for him. But yeah, I too kind of agree that Overeem probably should have hung it up there, just because even if he beats these lesser guys for these next 5 fights, he's not going to be able to climb his way to a title shot.
Yeah, and I totally agree what you said, that he's better than 90% of the heavyweight division. Even at 40 years old, well past his prime. He's still higher than most UFC fighters will even get in the career. So his talent level is better than all these 29-year-old guys, even right now. So it's hard to say hang it up, but just because we know where he's come from, he's a champion in so many organizations. He's been at the top, and you can tell there's a dip. And obviously he's been knocked out 16, 17 times, across his career, I think it is. So it's tough to watch, and it just wearing his night against Volkov, who I think is getting better and better. So I just said Overeem, I'd like to see him fight. I'd like to see him make some money and not take a lot of damage against the lower guys. I just feel like he may be done competing at this level in terms of fighting the Volkovs or fighting. I don't think that Rosenstruck rematch is on. I think a lot's off the table now, but it'd be interesting to see where he goes. And Volkov, he's got to go and get a big fight now. I've just been writing up an article about him wanting a title shot. He's not going to get that. He's got to beat Rosenstruck or Garn or avenge one of his losses to Blades or Lewis, and that'll get him. That's when he deserves, to be calling for a title. Right now, he's not there. But yeah, brilliant performance. I'm a big fan anyway. I like watching Volkov, and he did the business, and I can't wait to see him again.
Just before we move on, I did want to mention his weight coming into this, because he was the heaviest he's ever been. I think he was heavier than Overeem going to this. I could be wrong, but I feel like he was on the limit. And he looked much bigger, and you could tell the pop behind his shots was much harder. He's not usually breaking people's noses with his jab and blooding their face up. Not with one jab anyway. And he managed to do that in the first round of the fight. So, I think he looks phenomenal. Hopefully he stays big and he goes into his next one at the same weight.
He's a huge guy, he's 6'7", and he seems to be filling out. I think when he come to the UFC or his Bellator days, he was kind of like a skinny guy, a Stefan Struve type thing, tall but skinny, and but he looked huge and he looked much bigger than Overeem, and Overeem's one of the bigger heavyweights. So it's impressive to see, and he's been saying he's training hard, and at each camp he seems to be getting better. I think he's in his early 30s, so I expect him to peak over the next few years, and I think he is a future champion. He just needs to earn his spot. I think he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, so start putting these wins together, looking like he just did, and he'll be in a title shot in no time. He's just got to keep it going. Very impressive.
Speaking of future champions, what happened in that co-main event? Corey Sandhagen silenced the world and staked his claim to that next title shot.
Yeah, it was beautiful, because as Dominic Cruz was saying on the broadcast, that he clearly set him up for it. He was circling into the knee, and he did everything right. The way Masvidal, if you compare it to Masvidal, Masvidal was obviously just more. It was probably the better one, just for pure shock value. But it was a very simple technique from Masvidal. Just run at him, and he's going to duck in for the leg, and you'll catch him maybe. This one was it was smarter the way he set him up. He's letting Frankie come on to him. I was like, Edgar's putting it on him here, and then next thing, lights go off. So it was insane knockout. And Sandhagen, just I think, to come back from that Sterling loss with a spinning heel kick knockout of Marlon Moraes and a flying knee knockout of Frankie Edgar. There's never been a better comeback in UFC history. It's amazing to see. And we were just talking about age of Volkov. I think Sandhagen's not even 30 yet, is he?
He's quite young. I don't know how old.
28, and he's just done that to Frankie Edgar. I think Frankie Edgar, he might be past his prime, but I think Frankie Edgar with the lightweight title gets knocked out by that knee. I just don't think he could do anything. Maybe he doesn't get caught by it, but he definitely, if that lands on you, whatever stage of the career you're in, you're getting knocked out. It was perfect, and it's like Sandhagen's undeniable now for that title. I don't see TJ Dillashaw jumping the line, but I think Sandhagen would be willing to fight TJ Dillashaw as well. So lots of options for him, and he's got the bantamweight division at his feet right now, because, as I said, back-to-back performance, insane. Yeah,
I mean, and the comparisons to the Askren knockout, I think from me watching this knockout Sandhagen pulled off maybe 10 times, it didn't look like Edgar was really committing for a takedown there. It looked more like Sandhagen just lunged up and landed on his chin, which is more impressive because, like as you said, everyone knows Askren's looking to take you down. And if you look at Askren's previous fights, every single fight he's shot a takedown as soon as he gets in range. So you kind of tell that he was going to do it. But like you said, with this one, Sandhagen had to set that up. He had to jump quite high, but when he landed, it was lights out. That was one of the more vicious knockouts I've seen as well. He was on the canvas for so long. I wasn't even sure what was going on there, but thankfully he got up and he was all good. But yeah, it was a scary one, wasn't it?
It's the way they fall, when they fall like a statue and you're just like, he's already out and he's standing on his feet. It's like Terry Etten when he got knocked out by Barboza. Just when they fall like a statue and hit the floor and it face first as well. It was just a really bad one. And it was, I expected him to win. I expected him to knock out Edgar quick. And I expected big things from Sandhagen, but he even blew my mind. It was amazing. And in terms of, for the purest of the sport, the pure technique of that, as we said, you compare it to Masvidal, obviously it was a great knockout, but Masvidal's knee was probably below his hip. I'd say Sandhagen's knee was near his chin, near his own chin. It was that high, so it was just brilliant. And it's just, Sandhagen is the man now. What a way to come back from a tough loss. Obviously he got quickly submitted, and to bounce back like this against Marquez, who outside of the champions is probably one of the best bantamweights we've seen in the UFC, and then Frankie Edgar, who's held the title at lightweight, who's been competitive at featherweight besides Joe Aldo, and then he come down, he looked great against Pedro Munoz as well. So, hats off to Sandhagen, that's a huge win.
Yeah, and I mean, before I think when we previewed this, I told you I was expecting it to be more like the Yair Rodriguez fight, where Edgar was going to use his wrestling and was going to grind him out for 3 rounds. Couldn't have been more wrong. But for Edgar, after this loss, what do you think's next? Because obviously he can't change divisions again. He's been up and down, failed title bids every division. I can't see him getting a title shot in bantamweight unless he can put together like a 3 or 4 fight win streak. This was his best shot at getting a title at the bantamweight division. What's next for him?
I don't know. Can he come back? I think he can. I think he could be competitive with a lot of people in that division. It's the Overeem thing again, isn't it? Frankie Edgar, even at this stage of his career, is still better than the majority of bantamweight. So do you call it a day, or do you keep going and being competitive? And although the title might be out of reach now, you can still beat all these guys. So why would you hang it up, leave all this money on the table? It's tough because usually I'd suggest the legends fights, but Frankie's not in the division where there's a lot of like legends to fight against. So the good thing about the bantamweight division, there's a lot of fighters looking for fights. So you've got Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo, who are all kind of
Jose Aldo.
And Aldo's in there as well. There's fights that obviously I don't want to see Frankie fight Aldo again, but they're all looking for fights. Marias needs another fight. Edgar can fight these guys, and it can headline on a fight night or be high up on a pay-per-view card, and that's the draw he has. He goes straight back into big fights. It's just how they go. Uriah Faber's still about. I think Uriah Faber against Frankie Edgar. I'd want to watch that. I think it'd be competitive as well. So there's a lot going on. I imagine Frankie will be back. I hope he's back, because when you get knocked out like that, he probably doesn't even feel like he's had a fight. He probably feels fresh as anything. It's like Conor McGregor, and he's just being knocked out, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm fine. He hasn't even had the chance to fight Frankie Edgar. So I imagine he'll be back, and he'll be back in big fights.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I don't think he should retire after that. But hey, what a performance by Sandhagen, and like we've said, next month for the title shot after the belt's on the line next month. Before that, we had the veterans fight, which was Michael Johnson taking over Clay Guida. And if you had to give me one fight to hard lock my pick for when we previewed this card, I would have said Michael Johnson beats Clay Guida. And I think 2 years ago, Michael Johnson would have beat Clay Guida. But hey, we're here today, and Clay Guida managed to edge a decision over Johnson. I wouldn't say a controversial decision. I thought Guida won quite clearly from his wrestling ability. And what next for either of these guys?
Clay Guida, just shout out to him, because I was picking Johnson going into this one. I just thought Guida was just kind of on the end of his career. He's done, and really his last win was BJ Penn, which it's not a great win. BJ Penn lost about 7 by this point, so it weren't great. But he was just an animal in this fight. Props to him. I think he potentially could have got a performance of the night bonus, because he was that good to me. He was that impressive. He was relentless. He was just had too much. He just wanted it more than Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson was trying, but Guida was just too much for him, and it was really impressive to see. And Guida goes on. There's lots of fights, as we said, these legend fights. Sanchez, Cerrone are meant to be fighting. There's all kinds going on at that lightweight right now, and he can be in that mix. Michael Johnson, I don't know. I honestly, I would never make him my lock of the night, but I did fancy him in this one. But that's 4 in a row losses now, and I'd say Guida's the worst one of the lot. And his last win was Artem Lobov, and I don't think people, I know they might call him a goat, but it's not the greatest win either.
Yeah.
So, what you do? I don't know what you do with Michael Johnson now. I like him at lightweight. I prefer him at lightweight. I'm just not sure where he goes from here because he might actually get cut. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll jump on. Before that, we had some of the... we went from the veterans to the up-and-comer is where I was getting with. I didn't have the most elegant way to transition there. But we had Alexandre Pantoja against Beneil Cape, who coming in from Ryzen, and a lot of hype behind him, and sensational striker. Just couldn't put it on. He just couldn't get it going. He was a bit hesitant with his strikes. I don't know if a hesitancy or maybe he was just waiting for a big counter, but he just wasn't as active. And when he was active, he was landing, but it just wasn't enough to win the decision.
No, and I put this straight after the fight that Pantoja is championship level. He's capable of being a UFC champion. He's that. So in terms of UFC debuts, it doesn't get much harder for Cobb, and it's just it was tight fight. It was close. But Pantoja was clearly just being busy, and that's how he won it. You know, for a flyweight fight, the pace was quite slow. And I think maybe a bit of, UFC jitters and coming in, it's your first fight, you go straight in with a killer in Pantoja, and it just didn't go his way. But I think he looked good. I think we'll see the best of him moving forward. There's no shame in losing that fight. It was just one of them. It was just one of them for Cop, and he'll be back. And Pantoja goes on now, and he goes straight back into the flyweight mix, which I think on his day he can potentially be a champion. So interesting seeing how both of these guys get on. I'm sure they'll meet again down the line. And okay fight. Weren't blew away by Cop, but it was a good performance. Pantoja did what he had to do.
Yeah, you could probably do like Pantoja versus Perez, Pantoja versus Askarov, Benavides, any of those. I've got a suggestion for Cape or whatever. I've got a suggestion for his next fight, and I think this would be fireworks. And just let me know what you think. Kai Kara France versus Beneil Cape.
That would be more of a good. That's a like. I like Kai Kara France, but that's a nicer UFC debut in terms of that's measuring stick. I'd say Kara France is kind of the no disrespect, but kind of a gatekeeper. If you get past him, you're on to potential title shots, and I'd say Pantoja is one fight away from a title shot. So
I was talking about for Cape. Okay, I think he should fight Kai France now.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It would have been a nicer introduction to the UFC, and that's probably who they should have went with first. And I think that might be who they go with next, depending on travel restrictions and all that stuff. Yeah. But as you said, Alex Perez is there as well, which I think is a good fight for either of these guys, really. But the flyweight division, it's on fire right now. It really is on fire. It's great to watch, and it's going to be great to watch in 2021 with all these guys mixing it.
Absolutely. Before that, we had the lightweights, Diego Ferreira and Beneil Dariush. Probably my favorite fight of the night. The first round was awesome. The transitions on the ground were just real slick. I really enjoyed that. But as the fight went on, it just seemed to be Dariush dominating on the ground and Ferreira landing on the feet, but not being able to land enough where he could stop the takedown. Good decision. I liked the performance in both guys. I don't think either of them lost any stock. I agree with his post-fight speech, Dariush, is that they should have both had higher-ranked opponents on this one. But hey, they fought each other and he came out victorious.
Yeah, that's the problem with this. I think these guys have got the rankings. They just don't have the name. And especially in lightweight division, everyone is a star. Top 6, maybe top 7, top 8. They're all stars. I think Rafael dos Anjos is a huge... former champion, huge star, and he's ranked number 8. So it's tough for these guys, who are breaking into it. But I think the winner of this one goes on and they reap the rewards. Now, I think Dariush potentially fights Paul Felder or he fights Dan Hooker, and that I think that's a main event of a fight night. So it's huge. And I think he deserved the win. I think he was the clear winner despite the split decision, which was a bit weird. And I think he hit Diego a couple of times in the first round, and then he was just clearly the winner, and that's 2-0 for him against Ferreira now, and he moves on, and he's going to get a big fight next, and I can't wait to watch because he seems like a lovely guy as well. So it's great to see it all come together for him. 6 wins on the bounce now. Let's see what happens next.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if Dober manages to get over Makachev, then you could even do the Dariush rematch against him. But he was gunning for a top five opponent. I don't think he'll get it, but a hooker would be nice, or Fowler, RDA, any of the above would be really good. And for Ferreira, I hope they don't drop him down too far in competition because he's still a top contender. I still think he's really like. This is the thing I was thinking. The lightweight division has one of the highest skill levels in the UFC. These guys are ranked, what, 10 and 12 or something? And both these guys are just, like, extremely skilled. There's no part of their game where they're lacking. Whereas you get some other divisions, like the heavyweight division is the most obvious. There's people in the top 10 there that aren't the most technically sound because they can get away with it. But at lightweight, you just can't. You have to have skills everywhere. So I hope that they give Ferreira a fight against another top 10 guy. I don't know who, but hey, I hope they don't push him too far down. That'd be a bit sad.
No, there's lots of fights going there. The loser of Dober against Makhachev. It's just there's so much at lightweight that he'll stay in the mix because he was competitive, and also he probably who was he booked to face before this?
Can't remember.
I think he had a big fight booked.
Oh,
And then
Dober. He's
Dariush.
meant to face Drew Dober.
Yeah, so he'll be at that level and he'll remain at that level. I don't see him dropping out the top 15. He was competitive. He did well. He just got beat by Dariush, who I think will go on and he'll be main event his next fight, I think. And that's a huge step up for him. And that's his, coming out fight. You go and beat Dan Hooker, go and beat Paul Felder. You've cracked it. And I think and then the next fight's a really big one. So, really high stakes in that fight, despite it being quite low down on the main card. I think it was the fight everyone was keeping an eye on, and it delivered because it got Fight Night, didn't it?
So just before we move on to round out this card, maybe Kevin Lee for Diego Ferreira?
Maybe. Like Kevin Lee, I don't know what he's at. He's injured, isn't he? I think he's done both his
Yeah, he hit
ACLs
one
or
and then
he's
did
done.
the other one.
Yeah, so he's going to be a while, but yeah, someone like that. I think there's lots of names. I think the loser of Dober against Makhachev is the one that pops out to me right now. But there's lots going on in that division, and I think anyone will be a big fight for him. So he'll be fine, and he'll be back.
For sure. At the start of the main card, we had Mike Rodriguez against Danny Marquez. Rodriguez obviously had that controversial finish his last time out. I don't know if they ever turned that to a no contest, but if they didn't, they definitely should have. But hey, in this fight, he got fair and square submitted at the end of that second round.
Yeah, he got dominated as well. Really, it was Beneil made it really look easy, and Mike Rodriguez was he looked poor. He really did on the ground, especially. I think he's quite easy to submit by the look of it, because I don't think Ed Herman had to do a lot last time either. So that's maybe something to work on. But what is he? He's won one of his last 5 fights now, so I don't know where it goes for him from here. I don't know if he's going to be in the UFC in the next few days. Yeah, interesting to see. I hope he stays because he's a nice guy. We spoke to him on the channel, and he did look good against Prelims. And as Prelims, who did Prelims just beat?
Good question.
Right, Roundtree. So
yeah,
Prelims just beat Roundtree, and Mike Rodriguez got a win over him. So anyone can beat anyone in this division by the looks of it. So I hope Mike Rodriguez gets at least one more chance, because I think if you put him in with, rematch him against Ed Herman, let's just do the rematch, and we can see that, and it's still a fun fight that people would be interested in. So hope he sticks around. Then he goes on, and yeah, and see what both guys do next.
Fair enough. I already told you I didn't catch any of these prelims. Do you want to go over them and see if there's anything there?
So the main prelim was the Devontae Smith one, because he was a huge contender coming into the UFC. He done well. He come from the contender series, beat Julian Rosa, and then last time out, Conor Worthy, he starched him. So this is a huge bounce back fight, and after a few pullouts, I think it was Justin James who got the call, and Smith was basically putting it on him, and the fight got stopped because of an eye injury. And you've probably seen the images on social media. Yeah. He's got a big egg on his eye, and it was disgusting, really. And he wants the fight on. Props to him. He was tough, but it had to be called, that fight. It had to be called, and Devontae Smith was going to win anyway. So it was a good call, I think. Besides that, Carol Rosa beat Jocelyn Edwards, who was getting a bit of hype from a UFC debut, from what I remember.
That's right.
But she made it look easy. She really did. And she stretched her winning streak to 5, I think now. So very impressive. She hasn't lost since 2018 outside the UFC. So she's on a streak, and she dominated that fight. You know, it weren't particularly competitive. And then before that, how would you say that name? Laura Procopio. Oh, it's terrible anyway. I'd say the other one, Molly McCann. She's one of mine. She's from Liverpool, and it was just a wrestling again for Molly. She got out grappled, and she was doing well in moments. I think it was the second round. She caught her in a really tight armbar. And I know, you know, her gym is next generation in Liverpool, and they're known for the BJJ guys. They've got a lot of high level black belts. They've got good submissions, and when she had it, I thought that's a wrap, because they're good at these things. And she managed to survive Laura, and she worked her way to the decision win. And then, you know, before that, Zalal lost. That's 2 in a row for him now. Martin Day lost. I think that's like 4 in a row for him now. And Ode Osborne, he picked up a really quick win, which is impressive. So, as we said, it was quite top heavy, this card. I think that the main card did deliver. We had the fight tonight in there. We had a really good flyweight fight. Obviously, Sandhagen doing what he did, and Volkov doing what he did. It was top heavy, but it was a good card, not great card. On to the next one.
Yeah, for sure. We'll jump on to a little bit of news before we wrap this up. We do have a preview for the pay-per-view coming later in the week, probably on Thursday or around there. But we'll just jump on some news now. I have one piece of news, and that's it. Maybe you got more. And it's just Tyron Woodley opens up as an underdog against Vicente Luque. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm surprised, because it's going to be contested on the feet, and Luque is very hittable, but then he's also got one of the best chins in welterweight. So if Woodley can't get rid of him with one shot, I don't know what Woodley's got to win the fight. I would be surprised for anyone putting money on Woodley at this point in his career, you know, only because he's an underdog. That's the only reason you put money on him, because he's looked terrible. And I know it's been against good opposition, but he hasn't even landed a punch. He hasn't been competitive. And in his last fight against Covington, he seemed to give up. You know, I know it was a rib injury. I don't know what it actually was, but, you know, could he not have survived, you know, 2 minutes or whatever was left in the fight with that injury? I'm not sure. So there's lots of questions over Woodley and his ability to compete at the top level. The question is Luque top level? And how far has Woodley fallen? So lots of questions to be asked. They do surprise me, the odds, just because of Woodley's history. I think I would expect him to be the favourite in that fight. But it doesn't mean I expect him to win. And it's a huge chance for Luque to go out and get a big name on his record. And I think if Woodley loses, that's probably it for him. So huge fight.
I agree with some of what you said, but here's the thing in my mind. He fought back-to-back 3 wrestlers and he got out-grappled, right? Yes, Burns dropped him. Yes, Colby landed a few good shots on him, but those were because there was the threat of the takedown. Now, in this fight against Luque, we all think it's going to take place on the feet, and if it does, I expect Woodley to just breeze through it the same way he did with every opposition he faced previously to these wrestlers. He beat Wonderboy twice, and he was real patient in that second one. It wasn't the most entertaining fight, but he got the win, and I expect he could probably do that in this one. The X factor for me, though, Henry Hoof has coached 2 of his fighters to beat Tyron Woodley in the last year or 2 years. You know, he's going to have a game plan written already. He's tried it twice now. There will be a game plan to beat Woodley, and I expect it to probably involve a lot of grappling. I know Luque isn't traditionally a grappler, but he's probably got decent grappling, and I expect him to use it at points in this fight. And if not, it'll just be Woodley taking his time and outpointing him. I don't know. I could go a lot of ways. It is weird that he's an underdog, isn't it?
It is a bit weird, but I expect Luque to. It'll be a similar method, but it'll be no takedown. So it'll be putting pressure on, closing that gap. Darren Till, I don't think Darren Till particularly fought a different version of Tyron Woodley. He just stood right in front of him, right in punching range, and obviously got clipped. So it's about not standing in the boxing range, getting right on him, pushing him against the fence, throwing some boxing, just closing the gap. Because if he can't swing, he can't land, can he? If he doesn't have the move, like the space to throw a big wild hook on you, he really doesn't have a lot. So take that weapon away, and I think it's Luque's fight to lose. Can he do that? Can he close the gap without getting cracked? Is the problem. And does Woodley still have the the confidence to even throw a shot because
Yeah.
he seems shot shy. You know, besides getting wrestled, and you can blame it on getting wrestled, he was shot shy, and Burns was trading with him for a while and boxing his head off. And there was moments where he could throw and he didn't throw. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I think it's a really good fight for Woodley because it is a couple drops in levels. I think we've seen what Wonderboy did to Luque. And if Woodley still wants to mix it with the best, that's the similar. He's got to have a similarly type of dominant performance.
Yeah, I agree. Just before I move on, imagine if we see old Strike Force wrestling Woodley come back and take him down and grind him out on the ground. Wouldn't that be something, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, you speak about some wrestlers, and Woodley's a wrestler himself. He's a really impressive wrestler. So, I don't really like hearing that excuse because he should be able to prevent the wrestling because he's that talented himself. Interested to see how he looks. Besides that, there's not much going on. You've Tony Ferguson's kind of beefing with everyone at the minute.
Yeah.
Mike Perry called out a bunch of people. Does Paige Vanzant? She lost.
Oh, yeah, we can talk about that.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I watched the fight. Did you catch the whole fight?
I didn't see it. Like I was just paying attention to the results. How did she look?
Oh, not good at all. It wasn't impressive at all. Both of them. There was in the fifth round, the last round, Paige was landing some real good shots, and it looked like maybe she could get out of there, but she didn't manage to. And the rest of the fights wasn't very competitive. I think most of the judges, or I think all the judges, scored 1 round for Paige and 4 for her opponent, Liz Hart or something. I can't remember the name. Yeah, it just wasn't impressive. And this is the thing, like these bare knuckle fights, they don't have the same allure as the like MMA fights. Not even just UFC fights. Like it's different sport, and it just doesn't seem as glamorous and not really my thing. That's for sure.
No, I think it's apparently Shaquille O'Neal is investing and saying it's the future of fighting, but I just don't see. I'm not invested in it at all. I also don't like the bare knuckle style. I don't like seeing the knuckles after they're all swollen when it's just not. It's not really it's not worth it. I don't think. I just don't get the point. And everyone's cut, and if you can avoid cuts, you know you should try and avoid cuts. And for me, it's just a weird mash between boxing and MMA, and they've come up with this, and it's clearly doing big numbers, and I think Lieben look great on the undercard, and it's great to see these guys have avenues, you know, besides MMA where they can go and get paid. Apparently, Paige Vanzant got $400K for that fight, so
that's all that.
Well done to her, and I think a lot of people are getting big money from these organisations. So I don't begrudge anyone a payday. Just personally for me, it's not something I would, especially being in the UK, I wouldn't be staying up till 5 a.m. to watch it.
Yeah, I think we can agree on that. We'll wrap it up there. But like I said, Thursday we'll have a preview for UFC 258 coming. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll speak to you then.
Thanks, guys.